Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Janaea Talks Caps podcast. This week, we've compiled a list of 20 questions regarding the Washington Capitals as well as the rest of the league. And my guest today is Sunny, a former Boston Bruins fan who saw the light and converted over to your Washington Capitals. So let's welcome her on, and she's going to be asking the questions today. So Sunny, take it away.
First off, thank you for having me on your podcast, and let's get started. So, number one, do you think that this Caps team is better or worse than last year's team?
They are better. Yes. On paper, they're better than last year's team. I'll give my final answer, of course, once the playoffs have concluded, but on paper, this is a better Caps team than the one that won the Stanley Cup last season. First of all of the additions that they made at this year's trade deadline were great. There was two of them, of course, that directly affect the Capitals' big league roster. Nick Jensen, he is low-key such a good player. He helps in so many areas. He's so good at getting the puck out of his own zone, which is something that the Caps were struggling with mightily before the trade deadline. He's fast, and he's a good puck handler, and he can skate the puck out of danger, which we've seen him do successfully many times already. I can think of a few times just off the top of my head where he had the puck behind the net and just kind of made one move and got it out in front of Holtby's crease there, and he got the puck out of the danger zone with no problem. So that alleviates a lot of the pressure that the Caps were facing in their own end of the ice before. He makes a great first pass as well. He hardly ever makes a mistake defensively, and on the offensive end, you've all probably noticed already, he's great at walking the blue line in the offensive end and finding a shooting lane and getting the puck through to the opposition net. So basically, he just always seems to make the right play, both with and without the puck, and he's brought a great deal of calm energy to the defensive game of the Caps as well. And obviously, he's a great penalty killer, so that was an overall great addition at the deadline. Carl Hagelin, we all know what he can do because we've seen it in the playoffs so many times when he was with the rival New York Rangers as well as the rival Pittsburgh Penguins. Lots of horrible memories there for Caps fans, and he obviously brings so much speed. He's, again, very responsible defensively, which helps out a lot, and he's found his offensive game once again since being traded to the Capitals. He's put up 5 points in his last 7 games. And one of the big reasons that the Caps traded for him as well was to help their penalty kill, and he's done exactly that. The Caps have killed off, by my math that I've done, 29 of the 33 penalties that they've taken since the trade deadline. That's an 88% success rate, so much, 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 much better than they were doing prior to the trade deadline. So overall, the trade deadline was very good to the Caps, but in addition to that, some other guys as well, the younger guys who were on the Cup-winning team last season, are also so much better with another year of NHL hockey under their belts. I'm talking about Jakub Vrana. He's been so much better this year. He was good last year, of course, but he's so much better this year. He's got 21 goals already, and he's become a consistent threat. He's a threat to score every night. His defensive game is so much better than it was last season. He's been one of the most consistent all-around players, both offensively and defensively, every single night. Tom Wilson, he's got 20 goals in just 53 games this season. He'd be on pace for over 30 in a full season. Brett Connolly, he was already really a luxury to have on your third line, former first-round pick, of course, but he's managed to be an even better player this season as well than he was last season, and he's already got his career high in goals this season with 19 of them already, and there's still another 10 games to go, so I'm sure he's probably going to get to 20 for the first time in his career. The one guy who I do think that we might miss is Jay Beagle, and more specifically his face-off prowess. The Caps have been pretty terrible on draws this season, but I'll tell you what, it hasn't really mattered. They're good at getting the puck back, and their record since the All-Star break, of course, 15-6-1, that speaks for itself, and since the All-Star break as well, it's not just the win-loss record that has improved, but the Caps have improved in literally every statistical category as well, and I'm not just talking improved, but improved dramatically. So basically when we're looking at the blog, actually, Russian Machine Never Breaks, they had some great graphs up there the other day. When you look at things like, Corsi for Fenwick, all those puck possession stats, the Caps, basically, since the All-Star break, they are first place league-wide in just about every advanced stats category. So it's not a coincidence, it's not a fluke, it's not an accident that their win-loss record has improved as well, with such a dramatic improvement in all of the advanced stats. Like I said, they're first league-wide in pretty much every statistical category since the All-Star break. So anyways, I have yapped enough on this one. Next question, please.
Number 2. If you had to choose just one from these guys to have on your fourth line once the playoffs start, who you got? Who's getting the spot between guys like Dowd, Stevenson, Boyd, Yaskin, or don't forget Devontae Smith-Pelly, who thank God cleared waivers and is still available to the Caps for the playoffs? Down in Hershey right now.
Obviously, I'm kind of inclined, honestly, to say Smith-Pelly. The reason why I say it's obvious is just because of the playoffs that he had for us last year. He's known for being clutch in those situations in the postseason, but it really depends on his conditioning and where that's at, which actually it seems to be getting better as he's gone down to Hershey. He's gone down to Hershey with the right attitude. He's determined to get back up to Washington with his boys, and he's on a 3-game goal-scoring streak down in Hershey right now. With 5 goals over those 3 games, and he's got a whopping 9 points in the 5 games that he's played with Hershey. So I've been keeping tabs on him. He's clearly too good for the AHL. But his conditioning was what he needed to get in order, and it certainly seems like he's doing that. But all of those guys are good choices. They all bring value, so it could be situational depending on the opponent as well. For example, a guy like Devontae Smith-Pelly or a guy like Dmitry Yaskin, you would bring them in if you want some extra physicality. Nick Dowd, you would bring him in if you need a boost on faceoffs. Travis Boyd, if you want some more finesse and playmaking, he's very good with the puck. Chandler Stevenson, if you want more speed. DSP and Stevenson are obviously great penalty killers as well, so they both have that going for them. So I really think it could be situational depending on the opponent that you're playing against, and it's great for the Caps that they have so many great options to choose from.
Number 3, of the potential opponents that the Caps could end up facing in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, who would you prefer for the Caps to face, and why?
Pittsburgh. A lot of people might think I'm crazy, off my rocker for saying that, but here is my reasoning. The only thing better than beating Pittsburgh once would be beating Pittsburgh twice. Seriously, was that not the greatest day of everyone's lives when we won that series last year? The only thing that was better was what happened on June 7th.
Number 4. Okay, so same question, but just reversed. Of their potential first-round opponents, who's a team that you would least want the Caps to have to face off against?
Well, it's maybe a little bit off the board, but I'm going to go with the Carolina Hurricanes. I think they would give the Caps a very hard time. I actually think that they would give any team a very hard time because they play their game with a lot of puck possession. Teams are chasing them around the ice a lot, trying to get the puck back. I still think that the Caps would win that series, but I think it could get dicey. Sebastian Aho as well. He always seems to play his best hockey against the Caps, so I would like to avoid that one if we could.
Number 5. Who's a goalie who you would not want the Caps to have to face in the playoffs?
That would be Henrik Lundqvist, but fortunately for us, that's not going to be a problem this year.
Number 6. Will Alex Ovechkin cast and surpass Wayne Gretzky for the NHL all-time goals record of 894 goals?
Will he catch and surpass Wayne Gretzky? Yes. That is a big yes for me. Alex Ovechkin, he will be the NHL's all-time leader in goals by the time that he retires. Ovi's going to get to 900. You can mark that down right now that I said that.
Number 7. Who's the most underrated player in the NHL?
Nicklas Backstrom, and that is not just me being biased as a Caps fan. They do a survey of NHL players every single year, and they all agree with me as well.
Number 8. Who is the most overrated player in the NHL?
Carey Price.
Number 9. The Caps power play. It's still been good this season. It's ranked ninth in the league currently, but it hasn't been as completely dominant as we've come to expect over the last decade or so. Do you think they need to change up the power play alignment, or what do you think the problem has been this season?
No, I don't think they need to change up the alignment. I think they've got all the right guys in all the right spots, just as they've had for the last 5+ years, like you said. The thing about the Caps power play is that they've had the same alignment, the same scheme, really for 6+ years now, since 2012, actually, when Adam Oates became the coach. So they've had this setup for 6+ years, and yet the entire time, throughout those 6+ years, nobody in the entire NHL has been able to figure out how to stop these guys from scoring on the power play. And the reason why that is because it doesn't matter that everybody in the NHL knows their scheme. These guys, Nicholas Backstrom on the half wall, he's the best half wall guy in the league. Evgeny Kuznetsov down low, TJ Oshie in the slot, John Carlson manning the point. And before John Carlson, it was Mike Green. And then, of course, you have the nuclear bomb of all power play operations, Alex Ovechkin, hovering around the left circle. These guys are so talented that it doesn't matter if everybody knows what they're going to do, because they'll still do it. They will simply beat you. Even if you know what's coming, you still can't stop it. So just look at Alex Ovechkin in the left circle. Everyone in every NHL building, and all of their grandmothers as well, knows that the Caps are looking to get the puck to Ovi for the one-timer, and yet they still get it to him, and he still scores virtually every time. They're just too talented. It doesn't matter if you know what they're trying to do, because they will still do it. The problem this season for me has been that one of those guys in particular has not played up to his potential. He hasn't played up to the level that we've come to expect of him. And that, you can probably guess, is Evgeny Kuznetsov. Kuznetsov, to me, I love him, but he's driving me crazy this season. He's really hard to watch. He seems not to give a flying fuck on probably 80% of the nights that the Capitals have played a game this season. So I don't know what it is. He said as much before the season started, right? Like, he had such an incredible year last year. He set a career high in points, and then, of course, he led the entire National Hockey League playoffs with 32 points in just 24 games as the Capitals won the Stanley Cup. He probably, he could have won the Conn Smythe Trophy if not for some guy named Alex Ovechkin who led the way with 15 goals. But, Kuznetsov had this incredible year last year, and then reporters before the season, they were asking him, do you think you're one of the top players in the league? Do you think you're top 5, top 3? And he said, somewhat famously, I don't give a shit about that. He said that he doesn't like to have that expectation or that pressure, because that means that you have to be on every single night. He actually said that that requires a type of work ethic which he is not yet ready to have consistently. So he is a veteran player, but he is still a young guy. So he sounds at least very self-aware that he's just not up to the task just yet of basically having the work ethic that it requires to be one of the best players in the league night in and night out. However, it's somewhat infuriating as a Capitals fan when you hear a guy who makes nearly $8 million a year locked in for the next 8 years saying these things. Of course, the Caps signed him to that mega contract, 8 years and $7.8 million per season. So it doesn't sit too well with me. I love the guy, like I said, but I just want to see him play well every single night. I do think that when push comes to shove, when it comes down to crunch time, playoff time, when we need him to be great, he will be. But it's a little bit infuriating watching him out there this season, this regular season, as he's just overall been very, I guess lazy would be the right word. He's careless with the puck. Every time he gets the puck on the power play, it seems to result in a turnover and a chance going the other way. He can be so much better than he's been. So for me, I really believe that in order for the Caps power play to get back to the level that we know that it can be at, all it really needs is for Evgeny Kuznetsov to really get going again. That will solve a lot of the issues we've seen. And again, these quote-unquote issues are all really relative because if you measure this power play by the standards of just about every other team in the league, then it's still been very, very, very good. It's just that the cap standard has been set so ridiculously high over the last decade or so.
Number 10. Okay, so similar to how Devontae Smith-Pelly came out of nowhere last year to be a star in the playoffs en route to the Caps winning Stanley Cup, who do you think is going to be that maybe somewhat little known diamond in the rough for the Caps in this year's playoffs?
Well, I think Carl Hagelin would be the obvious choice, given that similar to Smith-Pelly, Hagelin has had playoff success with other teams prior to joining the Caps. People might not remember, but Smith-Pelly was really a star for Anaheim in the postseason before he eventually made his way to Washington. So he actually had a history of rising to the occasion in the playoffs. It's one of the reasons I was so excited when the Caps got DSP. And of course, history repeated itself last year as DSP scored a whopping 7 goals as a fourth-line player, once again upping his game in the playoffs and helping the Capitals capture their first championship in franchise history. So I just think Carl Hagelin has that same type of track record, if you will, of rising to the occasion in the playoffs as a somewhat unheralded player, again, just like Smith-Pelly was, and helping his teams win important hockey games. We certainly saw enough of it when Hagelin was with the New York Rangers and the Pittsburgh Penguins, and so I'm optimistic that we will see more of it in this year's postseason, but he will be playing for the right team this time around.
Number 11. What do you think Tom Wilson's ceiling is, offensively?
I think he can definitely be putting up 30-plus goals and 60-plus points every single year.
Number 12. Same question for Jake Vrana. What do you think his ceiling is offensively?
I would say you should routinely expect the same type of numbers that I just mentioned for Tom Wilson, approximately 30-plus goals and 60-plus points over a regular season. But I do think Vrana as well has the potential and certainly the work ethic to soar even higher than that. His insane speed combined with his natural offensive instincts makes his ceiling pretty much limitless. He's gotten so much better in such a short amount of time. He's pretty much doubled his numbers over what he put up last season. And it's really no surprise, like I said, with the type of work ethic that he has. He's routinely the last guy off of the ice at every practice, always staying out there until the Zamboni driver has to literally kick him off the ice so that he can clean it and go home. And he's out there working on everything that he feels he needs or wants to improve upon.
Number 13. Who's got the best hair in the league?
Oh, Ryan Getzlaf, no question. No question. No, I couldn't even say that with a straight face. The best hair, it's too bad that Axel Janssen-Fjallby is not an option yet. But I would have to say that it would have to be either Braden Holtby or Erik Karlsson.
Number 14. Who are your top 3 players you hate the most in the NHL?
Sidney Crosby, Chris Letang, Evgeny Malkin, Patrick Hornquist. Oh, I'm sorry, is that more than 3? And they can't all be from the same team? Okay, fine. Well, in that case, it's a toss-up between Crosby and Letang for my most hated on Schittsburg. And then let's go with the 2 Ryans, Ryan Kessler and Ryan Reeves, both totally useless out there on the ice, but yet both still seem to think they're totally the cat's pajamas. Kessler is about as narcissistic as if he's won 10 Stanley Cups, when the reality is he's never won a single fucking thing. And then you have Reeves, who is really just a piece of trash wearing skates. So yeah.
Number 15, Bauer or CCM?
iTech. I'm a goalie and I always had iTech equipment when I was growing up, and it was the shit. But now I will say Vaughn.
Number 16, Bruins or Leafs in the first round?
Oh, Bruins all the way. The Leafs defense is just straight trash. It's a tire fire. So yeah, no. Bruins in 5, 6 max, I would say.
Number 17, what's your favorite arena in the league?
Capital One, obviously. After that, it would be the Preds Bridgestone Arena. Winnipeg's atmosphere is pretty awesome also.
Number 18, worst fans in the league?
Ooh, that is a really hard one. I'm actually going to go with Canucks fans, just because I've been in that building so many times and their team is never good. And yet, even though their team is never good, they always talk smack as if they're on their way to the President's Trophy and the Stanley Cup. So they need a bit of a reality check in Vancouver, that's for sure.
Number 19. Best fans in the league.
The best fans? Again, obviously, it's Caps fans. But no, if I have to choose someone else, I actually want to give a shout out to Oilers fans. If that was my team, I'd quite literally have lost my mind by now, because they're terrible, and they've been terrible for so long, and it's just completely unacceptable at this point. And yet the fans, they still keep showing up. They keep on keeping on. And they might throw the occasional jersey on the ice, but they're still there in the building watching every terrible game that the Oilers play through thick and thin. So props to you, Oilers fans. You guys deserve a little love.
And lastly, number 20. Who do you think of the 4 current division leaders is the most vulnerable to a first-round upset?
Well, it's not Washington, it's not Calgary, and it's not Winnipeg. So this is maybe bold of me to say, and call it a little bit of foreshadowing, if you will, but I think it's Tampa Bay. And even if it's not necessarily in the first round that it happens, I do think they are going to go home early, or at least early by their own expectations of themselves. I think any of Washington, Boston, or God forbid Pittsburgh, kill me if that happens, but I think any of those teams would spell trouble for them for sure. So I think Tampa Bay would be the one to look out for. And that pretty much wraps up our 20 questions. So as always, Caps fans, thank you very much for listening, and hope to see you all soon. We have our next game coming up against New Jersey. Caps looking for a big win to get back on track, and then we have Tampa Bay coming to Capital One Arena on Wednesday, which is my birthday, so they better win. Let's go Caps!